guys, it's Cassara, and today I'm going to be doing a review for Shorefall by Robert Jackson Bennet. A free e-arc of this book from NetGalley in exchange for an honest review. For this book, I'm a little torn because I could tell the entire time that this book was brilliant. I wasn't feeling it as I read it, and I felt bad about that. Part of it is because towards the end, like when I was reading the end, I was kind of falling into a reading slump, so I think part of that is going to color this review just a little bit. I am going to assume that most of you guys who are watching this review have read Foundryside, which is the first book in this series. Shorefall is the sequel to Foundryside. If you haven't read Foundryside, I highly recommend you go and read that one first before watching this review, or you can watch my review of Foundryside, which I did a review on it last year when I read it last year, so I will link that up in the cards for you guys. Shorefall takes place after Foundryside, and there is like a time gap between Shorefall and Foundryside. It's like a 3-year time gap, which I didn't get right away. Like, I didn't understand that there was a time gap there right away, and I think that kind of took me out of the story a little bit because there were a lot of things left over from Foundryside, a lot of like loose threads that I was expecting to pick up right away, and I really felt like a lot of things happened between Foundryside and Shorefall that we never got, that really kind of threw me off for the beginning of Shorefall. Because Shorefall starts like in the middle of a scene. It starts, which is interesting, and I really enjoyed that, and I thought it was a really good way to get into the story, and it got me into the story really quickly, really fast. But once we got out of that scene and we kind of understood what was going on and what's going on in these characters' lives, I kind of realized right away, kind of a lot has happened, but at the same time, almost nothing has happened between the last book and this book, if you know what I mean, which was surprising to me because I didn't expect that. I also think that Shorefall has some of the most interesting, like, cerebral type of ruminations, which I really enjoyed. And while there were moments where I was like super into the book and really enjoying what was going on, I never felt like I loved the book the way I did with the first one. Like the first one, I was super into the book right away, and I think part of that was like, it's a new world to me. I really love the world building. It's really interesting the way the author marries magic to technology and all of that, and I thought the characters had a really interesting setup in the first book that I was really hoping would follow through in Shorefall, and it did in some ways, but it also didn't in other ways. So I'm gonna get to all of that. But like with all of my reviews, I'm gonna be talking about 4 things: character, plot, world building, and writing style. So we're gonna start with character. There's a few main characters, but my 2 like favorite characters always are Sancha and Gregor. I was a little disappointed in Sancha's character, especially at the very beginning, because one of the things I remembered from Foundryside that was really big for her was that she couldn't touch people. Like, when she touches something, she knows everything about whatever it is that she touches, and I feel like that was such a big thing in Foundryside for us to understand about her. And one of the first things we learn about her is like, can't really be intimate with people because like if she touches them, then she knows absolutely everything about that person, which can be overwhelming for a simple like pat on the shoulder or something like that. So she can't really get close to people. So it was really interesting in Foundryside, her getting this like found family sort of and getting close to people. In Shorefall, I felt like those issues like were not a thing anymore. Like, they were just not part of her character anymore. She had friends now, and like she didn't have any of those fears anymore, which I feel like is just unrealistic, even if it has been 3 years. And mind you, when I first started it, I hadn't realized that it had been 3 years. At the beginning of Shorefall, she's in a relationship, and it's kind of like, I kind of saw that coming on from the ending of Foundryside, but I wanted to see that kind of build and actually grow into an actual thing rather than at the end of Foundryside, it was more of like an attraction. And we didn't really get to see that because it happened in the 3 years that were not in Shorefall. Like, I like it when fantasy authors write romance into their books, if it's done well. And I feel like with this one, all the things that would make you root for the romance were left out. So all we had was the fact that there was a relationship, and we didn't get to see kind of the hardships that they went through, that they had to go past. Because of that, the relationship didn't work for me as much as I wanted it to. There are things that happen later on that you kind of do get to see some of those things, but I felt like it was too little too late. Like, there's one scene in particular where I absolutely loved how the relationship worked. It has to do with swimming. If you guys have read this book, you guys know what I'm talking about, but I loved that scene. But I really wish we had gotten more scenes like that earlier on in the book, because I felt like these 2 characters were already pretty well known to each other, and we never got to see them get to know each other. other, if you know what I mean. So I couldn't really root for the relationship. I don't know why I didn't mention her name, Berenice. It's kind of obvious from the end of Foundryside that this is gonna happen. Well, I liked the idea of the two characters together and I wanted them to be together. I didn't feel myself rooting for it the way I wanted to root for it. But I did also like Berenice as a character. I do feel like none of the characters, with the exception of one of them, had a whole lot of growth from the beginning of Shorefall to the end of Shorefall. Like, I felt like a lot of them were completely different characters in Shorefall than they were in Foundryside, but I didn't see that growth. The growth I felt like happened before the book started, which, I mean, like, doesn't really make sense, but like that's how I felt about it. And then, so Gregor, I think, is the character that had the most growth, and I really liked his growth in Shorefall, and kind of his whole story arc was amazing, and I really, really enjoyed his character. So the next thing I always talk about is world building, and I felt less interested in the world building in Shorefall than I did in Foundryside. Like, there were some parts of the magic that I felt like it was really interesting, but I felt like those parts were going more into theme rather than world building specifically. Like, I felt like I got kind of what I wanted from the world building in Foundryside. Like, I understood, you know, how the political system kind of works in this city and how magic and technology are related and how the magic works and all of that. I felt like I understood all of that. And we didn't really get more into those sort of things in Shorefall. Like, all of those things were like, we knew how all of that worked already. But there were some more concepts, I guess, introduced that I wasn't as interested in, if that makes sense. I enjoyed those scenes for the cerebral aspects of it, but like, I wasn't as invested in those parts of it as I was in all of the world building that we got in the first book. So the next thing I talk about is plot. And for plot, I feel like if you're a plot-based reader, you're gonna love this book, because that's basically what this book is. It's just all plot, which I'm usually fine with, especially like in second books. I feel like if second books have a lot of really good plot, then it's gonna be really, really good. There was action from the very beginning all the way to the end, and the plot, I think, is the strongest aspect of this book. Because of all the action, this book kept me reading it because of that, even though there were other aspects of this book that didn't work as well for me. And lastly, we talk about writing style, and I honestly don't know how I feel about the writing style. Specifically with like the time jump between first book and the second book, I just felt like it was unnecessary. Like, there was a lot of things right at the end of the first book that I needed to get back into the story right away, and I felt like because of that time jump, I was a little bit out of the story. And I mean, that's a stylistic choice that the author decided to make, but I didn't like that choice. If you talk about like actual writing, words, pacing, and things like that, like, he keeps the story moving, he keeps your attention on the story the entire time. The other thing about writing style I wanted to mention was like the humor. There was just these times when I felt like the book was trying to be funny. I never felt like it actually got funny. You know what I mean? I just kind of wish it didn't have those things in there. I felt like humor either really works well in books or it doesn't work very well at all. And usually I think character-driven books, or books that you know the characters really well, I think the humor generally works better because you know the characters, you know what their humor is like. And then the books where it's more plot-based or more world-building based and you don't get as into the characters or into their relationships as much, then the humor doesn't work as well because you're not in on their inside jokes. And I think because of that, I don't think the humor worked that well for me in this book. That kind of got me out of the story a little bit too. Also, I would like to mention, like, halfway through the story, I decided to switch to the audiobook because I suck at reading ebooks and like it just wasn't happening. So I switched to the audiobook, and I don't like the audiobook for this at all. And I forgot that, like, I originally picked up the audiobook for Foundryside and immediately realized that I needed to get the physical book. I thought it was because I like reading high fantasy as physical books. No, it's because I really don't like the audiobook narrator. Like, I feel like the audiobook narrator is like a high school girl, and it just doesn't fit in with like semi-dark high fantasy world that Robert Jackson Bennet set up here. So like, the narrator just didn't fit with the world, and then add in like the little bits of humor that the author was trying to put in there, and it just wasn't the reading experience that I really wanted from it. I will say I was a little disappointed in Shorefall overall. I do think Shorefall was a really good book. I just feel like I wasn't in it when I was reading it this time around. So hopefully in the future, maybe I'll reread it and hopefully I'll like it better. And because of all that, I ended up giving it 4 stars. So like, it's still a pretty good rating, but this was one of those books that I had really high expectations of, and I was really hoping that it could be a 5-star book for me, and it just wasn't. Let me know down in the comments if you've read this book, because I would love to discuss with you guys. I post videos every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern time, so consider subscribing. I also post bonus videos. If you want to be notified as soon as I upload, you can click that little bell icon. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up to support my channel. All social media links are in the description down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.